all the big government's reforms that the media hasn't been telling you about. We're going to read into this more from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with the headline that all the big government reforms that the media hasn't been telling you about. You won't have read much about these announcements over the past few weeks. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. So I really actually I really like this piece that I've read it already, but we're going to read it together. And I like this piece because it highlights some of the things that the government have been quietly doing in the background that actually could be a benefit and a bit of help for us. One of them that we've talked about already in a separate video about legal aid. But they are making reforms and they are making changes, positive changes. Now, yes, there have been a lot of negative stories, and rightfully so. The two-child benefit cap, disgraceful that they're still keeping it. The winter fuel payments, I think, is abhorrent. Some people have argued that it's needed. I don't agree. The inheritance tax on British farmers, there's been arguments for and against that decision. But I think the government are going to hold firm on that, even though British farmers have been struggling right now. They are investing £5 billion in the British farming industry, but that situation is not going away at all. The disputes, the complaints are still going to keep coming with that. So that's one that's not going to go away as well. One of the biggest negatives, of course, around this period has been the decision to not invest in Waspy Women. That's a massive betrayal from the Labour Party to the Waspy Women. It's been a huge betrayal of them. Now, these are all the negative stories. Some of the good things that we don't hear about of Labour are doing. So one positive that I really say, the nationalising of the train industry, I do think it is a big decision. I do think it will make a difference. I do think that the removal of the no-fault evictions, another big positive there, something that Labour, something that the Conservatives are banging on about. They didn't do that, and I'm just glad that that's obviously going to be coming. It isn't in yet, but soon it will come, and then renters can finally breathe a sigh of relief when it comes to being under landlords. And if it means that landlords are selling up instead, then good, because it means more homes for people, in the long term on that. There is obviously always room for improvements. Overall, I think this Labour government has been more negative than positive based on things, but let's read some of the announcements and some of the things that they have been doing that perhaps maybe we haven't caught our eyes too much of here. So, because I'm such a great fun, I often share announcements from various government bodies on Bluesky and Threads, providing that they sound vaguely intriguing. There's one thing that is always certain. The comments will be full of surprise from people who haven't seen the news anywhere else. It's debatable whether this is down to the state of Britain's media, the government's poor communication game, or both. So we'll come back to that. But in the spirit of goodwill, we've dug through various projects, politics and plans from the different government departments, largely over the past few weeks, that we think is most people probably haven't heard about. This list is by no means inclusive, and it's up to you whether you think the news items are good or bad. However, they do offer a flavour of some things that we could, and arguably should, all be talking about. So, let's talk about all these stories. So, first and foremost, Anti-Corruption Unit. So last Thursday, the government announced that the Home Office and the City of London Police have established a new pilot domestic corruption unit. It has been warmly welcomed by transparency groups as an incredibly important and welcome tipping point, according to the charity Spotlight on Corruption. The Security Minister, Dan Jarvis, made the announcement at the Economic Crime Congress in central London. Responding, Duncan Hames, the Director of Policy and Programmes at Transparency International UK, said, "We know corruption is not just a phenomenon elsewhere. It's happening right here at home. But it is not enough. But not enough is understood about the nature and the scale of the problem." So, a domestic corruption unit sounds good. Whether this will make an impact against corruption, we hope it will do. But it's a positive step. Now we obviously know about the anti-corruption. We know that they're looking to claw back a lot of money from the COVID contracts, from the PPI scandals. All that money that was taken away from taxpayer money. They know that they've made this very clear that their intention, Labour, is to claw some of that money back. These are good things. Let's be very clear about that. This if this is a good thing, because you want to have it. But obviously, we need some. Will there be substance? Will there be meat to this? Will there actually be meat to this that actually deals with corruption? That is a question that I think is worth asking. Yeah, because while it sounds good here, we want it to succeed, just like we want money to be clawed back from, the PPIs, the COVID contracts and whatnot that happened during the pandemic as well. Just on this last bit, the government has right to identify the challenges and investigate and prosecuting bribery and corruption taking place here in the UK, and the need for a dedicated response. We look forward to contributing to building a clearer intelligence picture of bribery and other forms of corruption in our country and seeing the police act on it. Okay, here's the next one. Boosting criminal legal aid funding. Now, we talked about this in a separate video. The Ministry of Justice announced plans on Thursday night to increase the criminal legal aid fund by 12% over this Parliament. So Politico reports that a consultation on the new rates will start in the new year. The Law Society has called it a welcome step forward, but only a step. This Tuesday, the government announced an extra 2,000 Crown Court sitting days over the next year. Courts will sitting for a total of 108,500 days, the highest figure in almost a decade, helping to tackle a court backlog, officials have said. Fees for criminal legal aid work in police stations and youth courts have been increased by £24 million. And the government has also announced its intention to consult on an increase to civil legal aid fees and housing and immigration cases. Major cuts to legal aid under the Conservatives have been blamed for preventing access to justice from some vulnerable groups. This is a good thing. People's rights to be able to have a case for themselves, like especially the immigration and legal aid fees. We talked about this in another video. If I find it, I'll put a link in the description. But a lot of immigrants and asylums who are trying to make a case, obviously, should have a right to an aid worker. This is really, really important. It's just from a human. The main crux is from a human rights perspective on this more than anything. So this is something very good. This is something very, very important in my opinion. Whether you agree or disagree is another thing. But yeah, I think legal aid. This is something that is needed and something that has been undermined by the Conservatives for quite a while as well. So this is a good step. This is something I've talked about before as well. Councils in England set for an above inflation boost. So this week, the government's announced a £69 billion funding package for local councils in England. Local authorities across England will receive a real terms, i.e. above inflation increase of 3.5% in funding for 2024-2025, following a real terms cut in their spending power of around 40% since 2010. The new package includes a £600 million recovery grant aimed at supporting counties in most need, with £3.7 billion specifically for social care services. Rural communities will see an average 5% increase in their core spending power, the government says. In central government, spending powers look set to be constrained. The Green Party has criticised the Chancellor's call for government departments to identify 5% efficiency savings, with the co-leader Adrian Ramsey describing it as cuts to services and arguing for increased taxation on the wealthy instead. First and foremost, let me just point this out here. Why are we not taxing more of the wealthy? Adrian, once again, pointing out an absolute obvious there. The Chancellor calling for government departments to, find savings when things are already cut to the bone is ridiculous. That part, I will say, is really, really important to highlight. As for the £69 billion funding package for local councils in England, very good. This is very good. Is it enough? Probably not. But this is obviously something that will help local authorities across England. An increase of 3.5% funding for 2024-2025. I mean, it says it right there. 40%. They have real terms pay cuts, spending tower of around 40% since 2010. This is a welcome boost. Is it going to be enough? No, of course not. But it is a start. This is a start. Something that is much desperately needed. And I really do hope it just helps some of these local authorities that are really struggling, gives them a bit of a boost in times where they really are, their backs have been against the wall. So let's hope this really does work out. I really, really hope so. This one I'm very happy about. So the government's re-nationalising military housing. So the government has announced a major deal this week to bring more than 36,000 military homes back into public ownership, in what ministers describe as an effort to address a chronic underinvestment in armed forces accommodation. The agreement, which covers 36,347 properties, aims to improve living conditions for military families and generate long-term savings for taxpayers, and it marks a significant reversal of the 1996 privatisation of military housing under John Major's Conservative government. I'm going to read the rest of it before I give my thoughts. The recent reports highlight serious problems with a military accommodation. A House of Commons Defence Committee report published this month and found 2/3 of service family accommodation was essential, no longer fit for purpose, with widespread issue of damp and mould. Government figures show that more than 9,000 incidents of damp and mould were reported across military housing in 2022-2023, with complaints rising by 40% in a single year. There were also over 500 flooding incidents during the same period. The poor state of military housing has been linked to falling morale and retention problems within the armed service. Recent surveys showed that only 40% of personnel are satisfied with service life, down from 60% in nearly 2010. Excuse me. Nearly 1/3 of service personnel cited housing conditions as increasing their intentions to leave the forces. The National Audit Office estimated cost taxpayers between 2.2 billion and 4.2 billion more than the first 21 years of prioritisation if the properties have remained in public ownership. So this is one of the reasons why people have been deserting the armed, have been giving up on our British armed forces, is these accommodations that people are living in, just based on this alone. Now I've said, and I spoke about this on many different videos, like if you want people to join the military, you've got to incentivize people to do so. I've said this time and time again. And if the housing that they are in is crap, is no good, then it makes all the sense in the world to say, you know what, let's put it back in the government's hands. And this right here proves that. I mean, military families, it matters to them. You know, what they be like. This is really important. Excuse me. I really do think this could reverse the trend in the recruitment losses that we've been having. I really do think it. Now it's going to take time. Again, I know people don't like this word, but it is going to take time for this to take effect. But this is a welcome boost, a massive boost, because you know when you hear about military veterans being homeless, when you think about the current state, the state of the world that we are in right now, and the global effects, the wars and conflicts that are taking place right now, and we're seeing the desert. We have what, you know, the amount of British soldiers we actually have, official ones, like, and many are just saying, you know what, I've had enough. I don't want to be a part of this service, and this just compounds it, you know. So this is a welcome boost. Another thing coming out from privatisation into public ownership. What on earth was John Major thinking when he done this in the first place? So this is another big bonus here. So compensation for LGBT plus veterans, not waspy women. So LGBT plus veterans who were dismissed from the armed forces due to their sexual orientation or gender identity will receive up to £70,000 in each in compensation. I think we spoke about this before in another video or live stream. The government has increased the total funding available to 75 million, with a base payment of 50,000 and additional payments up to 20,000 for those affected by the discrimination ban between 1967 and 2000. Okay. Like, I'm glad that they've had the money and the compensation for this, and that's great. Totally have no problems with this whatsoever. If going forward, obviously it means that LGBT plus veterans forces are treated equally, then that's all good with me. But again, this points out to me about the waspy women, like, where's their compensation sort of thing, you know. I've talked about this in a separate video. New Hospice Cash on Thursday. It was a big day for buried announcements. The government announced £100 million in extra hospice funding over the next 2 years in England, covering buildings, equipment and accommodation. Only a third of hospice funding comes from the public purse, which the rest comes from fundraising. Excuse me. My voice is starting to go today. I'm doing a lot of recording, so I apologise. This is good. This is welcome stuff. Obviously, I do think that this has come off the back of the whole legislation over assisting dying. The assisting dying bill, which It hasn't passed yet. It's just gone its second reading. It's still going to be a few years before it comes back into the House, by the way. But they did highlight the talk about hospices and how we need to improve end-of-life care. And like I said, I'm all for improving end-of-life care. Absolutely, 100% all for it. But, I'm also in favour of people having the right to be able to choose to end their life if they are in great deal of pain. And you can improve the hospice care as much as you want. You could have the best hospice care in the world, but sometimes no medicine can help them with the pain and the suffering that they are in. And sometimes the best way for them who want to end their life when they are terminally ill is to have that option of being able to end their life and having that choice to be able to do so, which is why I'm in favour of the assisted dying bill in of itself. Are there tweaks and whatnot? Yes. But in terms of this in particular, in the Hospice Cash, very welcoming. Good stuff. So the foreign policy and defence, the government has launched a new campaign against dirty money with fresh sanctions targeting Russia's treasury fleet of oil vessels. A landmark UK-Germany defensive pact has been signed. Military personnel received their largest pay increase in decades. That's very good. Relatively, military veterans will now get prioritised access to social housing. Another 3.5 million has been allocated for homeless veterans support. This is all very good stuff. Totally very happy with this. Obviously, let's hope that that we can target more dirty money within politics, because there is flooding of it as well. So the Germany defensive pact is good as well. And the homeless veteran support, obviously, we've said about how we want to get people off the streets as well. So I'm very much in favour of this. So this is another good policy from Labour, in my opinion. On housing safety, the government set new targets for removing dangerous cladding. We talked about this in another video. Promising the high-rise buildings and government's funding that schemes that will be fixed by the end of 2029. Developers have committed to doubling their repair rates. Will work on all their buildings set to begin by summer 2027. An emergency £10 million funding was launched to protect rough sleepers during the winter, and ministers have launched 32 new home building skill hubs across the country to create 5,000 construction apprenticeships. Now, obviously, if they want to hit their target of 1.5 million homes within the first parliament, this is kind of stuff they're going to need. However, which is one of the biggest problems with when it comes to housing, is what are they going to do about the materials? And this 5,000 construction apprenticeships and home skilling hub is a very cool thing. Try and build up more workers and apprenticeships here in the UK, rightfully so, because we need them, rather than trying to get from abroad. But we are still going to need people from abroad. That's the reality. Reality is we're going to need more from abroad. There's no two ways getting around that, unfortunately. But emergency £10 million fund launched to protect rough sleepers during the winter. I mean, just great. The funding there. If it gets more people off the streets and in homes, great. I'm all for that. A lot of this sounds really, really good. It's all about the action. So over time, if we start to see these things, if they're no longer things that people are talking about because they're actually been dealt with, then it's all good stuff there. Education, the school staff support staff negotiating body, of which the Conservative Lib Dem coalition government abolished in 2010, has been reinstated to support school staff and boost their wages by involving unions. So not in central government, but in London, Mayor Sadiq Khan launched a £2 million greener school pilot scheme aimed at helping schools become more energy efficient. Schools implementing measures such as insulation, solar panels and heat pumps could save up to £18,000 annually on energy bills, the Greater London Authority says. And this one from September, which we think will slip through the cracks, a new music opportunity pilot scheme will be offering singing and music lessons to disadvantaged children. This is great stuff. This is a really, straight away, it just gave me this idea. We talk about wanting, homes to have solar panels and insulation. Why not? Why not education? Why not in schools? Why not in colleges? Why not in these places? And doing them on them sends a really powerful green message to young students, the next generation as well. So this is a very good thing. But yeah, this is not particularly central government, but London Mayor Sadiq Khan. Guy's done a lot. The guy's done a lot, Sadiq Khan. There is criticism. There is constructive criticism on him in his time as London Mayor. But overall, most of the candidates the Conservatives put against Sadiq Khan have been nothing short of crap. And I really mean this. They have been crap. So London have been fortunate to have someone who actually is trying to do things, because trust me, the Conservatives would not be doing some of these things at all. So, yep, good stuff there. So, Law and Justice. The Ministry of Justice announced plans to create 14,000 new prison places by 2031 to deal with the prison crisis. Current projections suggest the prison population could reach 105,200 by March 2029. The Howard League for Penal Reform has criticised the strategy, arguing the funds would be better spent on probation service and crime prevention. Legal aid has been increased to support vulnerable citizens who need legal support. A new Women's Justice Board has been established. Fresh police reforms include a new police performance unit and a national centre for policing. Laws against intimate images abuse have been strengthened. And over 100,000 former mine workers have received pension increases, as the government says it is reversing a historic injustice of lower pensions. Recipients will receive an average £29 extra to their weekly payment. So first and foremost, on the mine workers, they got screwed over by the Thatcher government back then, and it's rightfully so that what they went through. Talked a bit about legal aid already. This comes across to me as good stuff. We know that the prison system is in crisis. They're looking to create 40,000 new prisons, but the main thing about the prisons is about the rehabilitation situation, so that once they've been rehabilitated, that they don't need to go back into prison. That's going to be the plan. But obviously, you have to tie that into obviously the social issues that come from them, the life that they have, the area that they come from. These kinds of things that are also tied into it. So it's not just a case about just rehabilitating them and then sending them back out and hopefully they'll be all right. Sometimes it could be a case that the area or whatever they're going through is not as straightforward as that. 14,000 new prisons places. Obviously, where they're going to come from, I think they are going to build one. There are going to be more prisons built, unfortunately, because we are quite strong, quite overstretched at the moment. So I do hope that over time, the number does go down on prisons. I really do hope so. The funds would be spent on probation service and crime prevention, which is the key thing, because you want to prevent these in the first place, which is the key thing on there. Legal aid, increased support for vulnerable citizens. Yep, that's a good thing as well. And a new Women's Justice Board being established. I like that as well. But again, while it sounds good, will there be meat to that? That Women's Justice Board, fresh police reforms, including fresh police performance units in the National Centre of Policing. I have had very little faith in police force for a long, long time. So I'm not going to praise this because I want to see it in action and not words with the police, because I've lost very much a lot of faith with the police force over the last decade or so on that. A new business growth service for small businesses will be launched by ministers in the first half of 2025, designed to streamline support services. The incentive aims to address low engagement rates with small and medium-sized business with growth support schemes. It's only 26% of UK SME employers sought external advice in 2023. Business rates have been cut for small business on the high street. The government has introduced new controls in public bodies and departments to save $1.2 billion on external consultancy spending by 2026. I'm not going to comment too much on this. All I will say is that businesses on the high streets, for me, they need to be protected, and I hope the government encourages more body businesses on high streets. For too long, too many of our high streets have been run down to the ground over the last 14 years or beyond, longer than that, obviously. We need to see more people to be able to take more opportunities when it comes to opening up shops on the high street. We don't want to lose the high street. I don't want us to lose the high street. I think the high streets really matter, is what I'll say on that. Climate and environment. I'm still holding, this is what, I don't know whether or not they're going to continue with this, but we'll see. The government's new clean power plan, a vision for getting to a 95% renewable powered electricity grid, was warmly welcomed by environmental groups. Caroline Simmons from Green Campaigners Warm this winter said, "We desperately need long-term solutions to stop this vicious cycle of high energy bills, which led to 6.5 million people in the UK living in fuel poverty. That's why we work on the government's announcement to get bill payers off volatile oil and gas prices by ramping up its ambitious clean power plan. Latest forecast price cap means energy bills will be 70% above what they were in winter 2020-2021, which is why permanent solutions are must for households. And that's why we're pleased to see the government getting on with the job of permanently lowering bills for all. The Prime Minister launched a global clean power alliance at the G20 in November to accelerate the clean transition worldwide. An 88 million joint industry government fund has also been created for zero emissions vehicle technology. So that's all that they've had. So environment, climate, business, spending, law and justice, education, housing, foreign policy and defence, new Hospice Cash, compensation for the LGBT plus veterans, government renationalising military housing councils, set for England above inflation boost, boosting criminal legal aid funding, anti-corruption unit. So those, so I would say the vast majority of them are positive things from my perspective. But does this mean that I'm very happy with what the government is doing? There are some of the negatives have been really bad. Yeah, still. And at the moment, it's more negative than positive in my view. Don't get me wrong, these positive stories, these are welcome stuff. And if over the next 4 years we find that people are better off, then great. And I generally sincerely mean that. But time will tell on these things. But these reforms, let's see what they do. But honestly, guys, we've gone 26 minutes in. If you've gone all the way through, what do you guys think about all these stories? What do you guys make about the big government reforms that the media may or may not have told you about? Some of these stories I've already covered in separate videos, but let me know what you guys think about some of these down in the comment section below. If you found this video informative or helpful to you, please hit the like button, we'd greatly appreciated. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further and financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.